The basketball conversation continues, specifically at the point guard position. Kennedy Chandler, Zakai Zeigler, some interesting stats from both of those guys in the month of February, and why this is a great conversation to have for Tennessee basketball. Plus, who was the MVP of Tuesday's game against Kentucky? Might be harder than you think to decide because there was a quartet of volunteers that really showed out. Plus, Ben McKee of Volquest Rivals will stop by to preview the baseball season, all that and more here on a Thursday Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey everybody, welcome into a Thursday edition of Locked On Vols. Glad to have you guys hanging out with me here today. I'm your host, Eric Cain. You can follow me on Twitter at _Cainer and the show on Twitter at Locked On Vols. I do radio in Knoxville, Tennessee. I write for the rival site covering Tennessee. That is volquest.com. And really excited for this show. Again, like in the cold open, a lot of hoops talk. And again, we'll talk with one of my coworkers, Ben McKee, on Tennessee baseball. That season getting going this weekend against Georgia Southern, a 3-game set at Lindsey Nelson Stadium. Guys, thanks so much, as always, for making Locked On Vols your first listen. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the show, whatever platform you want to listen to it on. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe, grow that YouTube channel. Just search Locked On Vols. As always, thanks for making Locked On Vols your first listen. All right, let's get into some stats here, okay? Kennedy Chandler, Zakai Zeigler in the month of February. These were some notes dropped from Brent Hubbs immediately following Tennessee's win over Kentucky Tuesday night. He shot us these stats in the group chat, and then he put it on at volquest.com. I wanted to bring him on here to the show. Kennedy Chandler, 5 games in the month of February, averaging 31 minutes per game, 13.6 points per game. He's 25 of 52 shooting from the field. That's 48%. He's 7 of 17 from 3. That's 41%. 11 of 16 from the free throw line, 69%. That's still got to improve. 21 rebounds, 28 assists, 13 turnovers, and 13 steals. That stat line for the month of February, not too shabby. What about Zakai Zeigler, the guy that comes off the bench, arguably in the conversation at least, for the 6th man of the year in the SEC? Zakai Zeigler, true freshman, also 5 games in the month of February, averaging 25.4 minutes per game, so almost 6 minutes less than Kennedy Chandler. He's averaging 14.6 points per game, so that's a little bit more than a point, or right at a point. 21 of 45 from the field, shooting 46%. That's 2 percentage points down from Chandler. 12 of 22 from 3. That's 55% from three-pointer. That's better than Chandler. 19 of 22 from the charity stripe. That's 86%. That's better than Chandler. 6 rebounds, 17 assists, 9 turnovers, and 16 steals. Regardless, any way you want to look at it, we're nitpicking here between the two players. That's a pretty impressive stat line for Zakai Zeigler. So when Chandler's in the ball game, you're feeling good because he's really starting to come into his zone. He's really hitting his stride. I remember back in the preseason, Rick Barnes said it wouldn't be till around February or March until when Kennedy Chandler really starts to hit his stride. I think you're seeing that right now, right? It's almost like, Rick Barnes has been doing this for a couple of years and kind of knows what he's talking about, right? So Kennedy Chandler, that stat line's impressive. Zakai Zeigler, that stat line is impressive. And obviously, he, heart of a lion, fan favorites, just such an easy guy to root for, right? And as a guy that's going to be here on campus for quite some time, don't worry about it. He'll be a 4-year player here at the University of Tennessee. So those are the stat lines for the guys in the month of February. Now, keep in mind, these games in February span from a game against Texas A&M where Tennessee won 90-80, on the road where Tennessee blew out South Carolina 81-57, but did lose Olivier Cumwa on that one. In Starkville, Mississippi State, when Tennessee picked up a 72-63 win. Back home against Vanderbilt, 73-64 this past weekend. And then, of course, earlier this week against number 4 Kentucky, 76-63 in a game that wasn't even that close. Tennessee had a 20-point lead at points and times in that basketball game. You can't win in March. At least this is what they say, right? You can't win in March without good guard play. And Tennessee is getting really good guard play from your 2-point guards, or, what 2-point guards essentially that play on the court a lot at the same time too, from Kennedy Chandler and Zakai Zeigler. So you couple that with the way John Fulkerson has come to play the last couple of games. Again, not getting back to 2019 Fulky, but giving you a whole lot right now. And again, that crunch five, he's that five in there, and he's playing good defense as well. Couple that with the way that Santiago Vescovi has been consistent all season long. I mean, he's the definition of steady Eddie. That's an all-SEC guard. He will be a part of the all-SEC team when they vote on it without a doubt, right? Couple that with Santiago Vescovi's good play, John Fulkerson's good play, this new look Tennessee starting lineup to where you're not getting a whole lot of minutes from Uros Plavsic and Brendan Huntley-Hatfield, but you're getting something for Jonas Adu coming off the bench. And then you obviously have some guys that roll in there like Justin Powell, Victor Bailey Jr. On occasion as well. And so Tennessee's in a good spot right now. Tennessee, again, they've won its last 8 SEC games. Okay. Excluding that hiccup in Austin against Texas, where Tennessee had that dramatic, 15-2 run, came all the way back, lost by 1 point, 52-51 at the buzzer. Josiah Jordan-James, that's another guy I didn't even mention there. He's not shot the ball particularly well the last 2 games, but even against Vanderbilt, when he couldn't buy a bucket, he still finished with a double-double. Was in foul trouble against Kentucky. Other guys were shining, but Josiah Jordan-James is still playing very, very well right now. He took that last shot against Austin. It was a wide open shot. It was the right decision, in my opinion. Plus, he'd already made 3 threes on the day. Tennessee just came up short against Texas. But before that game, Tennessee had won their last 3 in a row, dating back to that embarrassing loss since Kentucky. So since that first round against Kentucky on January 15th, Tennessee has turned its season around. It has won 3, 5, 7, 8 games. It's gone 8-1 since that loss to Kentucky, with the only loss coming in the Big 12 SEC Challenge in Austin against Texas when it nearly came back and won at the buzzer. So Tennessee's hitting its stride right now. You want your team to start hitting its stride there towards the end of February, getting into tournament play in March, all that type of stuff. You don't want your team to be playing its best basketball game or its best basketball in the month of December or early January. I think Tennessee's really starting to come into its own. But a big reason why is because of the play from both Kennedy Chandler and Zakai Zeigler. I mean, we got fans on message boards. We got fans on Twitter that are, coming at, each other saying, oh, who's better, Chandler or Zakai Zeigler? And, there's some compelling arguments either way. But what a great conversation to have right now if you're Tennessee. Again, Zakai Zeigler was not projected to be in this role this year. Number one, he's supposed to be in high school. He reclassified. Number two, you thought he might get a couple minutes a game. Sure, he'd be the backup point guard, but never imagined, at least I don't think you ever imagined, that he was going to be playing 26, 27 minutes per game and being this productive. And these are just offensive numbers. He's been incredible on the defensive end. Just like the other night at Tuesday when you had that strength coach for Kentucky try to bow up on Vescovi. And, should he have shoved the guy? Probably not. But he gets in there and shoves him and starts the whole melee. It's hilarious, right? He's a fighter. He's a guy that's so easy to get behind and rally with and just to love if you're a Tennessee fan. So wanted to bring those stats to the podcast. Again, those are from BrentHubsVolquest.com. Chandler, again, I'll read these off. In 5 games, Chandler averaging 31 minutes, 13.6 points per game, shooting 48% from the field, 25 of 52, 41% of 3, 7 of 17, 11 of 16, 69% for the line. That's one stat that's got to improve. 21 rebounds, 28 assists, 13 turnovers, and 13 steals. Zakai Zeigler, 5 games in February, averaging 25.4 minutes per game, 14.6 points per game, 21 of 45 or 46% from the field, 12 of 22 from 3, that's 55%, 19 of 22 from the charity stripe, that's 86%, that's a good line, 6 rebounds, 17 assists, 9 turnovers, and 16 steals. Both of these guys getting it done on the offensive end and finding ways to impact the game on the defensive end out on the perimeter as well. Kennedy Chandler and Zakai Zeigler, a big reason why Tennessee basketball is where it is right now. And, of course, both those guys are going to have to be monumental on the road at Fayetteville this weekend against Arkansas, on the road at Columbia against Missouri, back home against Auburn next Saturday against Georgia on the road, and back home against Arkansas to end the regular season on March the 5th. So wanted to bring those 2 stat lines to you guys because I found those very intriguing. Can't win in March without good guard play? Well, Tennessee's got some good guard play right now, that is for sure. Ben McKee of Volquest.com, he's going to stop by the show here in just a moment to preview the upcoming season for Tennessee baseball. Before, we're talking baseball now, talking hoops, football, it's over right now, but basketball, other sports, full steam ahead, both pro and college. From all the latest odds, totals, player performances, props, to where the next coach might be fired is going to land, right? BetOnline.net is your number one spot for all your sports betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, news this offseason. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline.net is your source for hockey, boxing, UFC, odds right to the Olympic coverage happening just the last couple of days from Beijing. All that and more you can find at BetOnline.net. All right, head on over to the website today. Use your mobile device, sign up, and learn about the trends and all the action. BetOnline, it is where the game starts. All right, guys, welcome back into Locked On Vols. Been chatting an exciting basketball victory again. Still 2 days later, still feels good. Tennessee over Kentucky, but now it's kind of that crossover season. Tennessee baseball is coming up. Season starts on Friday against Georgia Southern, and the Adam Schefter of Tennessee baseball, his name is Ben McKee. He's a friend of the program. Going to bring him on to the show right now. Ben, Adam, what's going on, man?
You're funny, although I am immediately regretting joining at least the video version of this because your background is just putting mine to shame right now.
Hey, when you were at home for a week long, quarantining because you got exposed to COVID, you had a lot of time on your hands. So I made the most of it and tried to make it look. Of course, everybody's saying I need more Tennessee stuff. That's why I got the little Alvin Kamara bobblehead right there. So we're a work in progress. But
and maybe the Alvin one needs to come down and be replaced by somebody else at the moment.
Maybe so. Maybe so.
I kid. Just unfortunate timing there for you.
Yeah, that is true. Back to Tennessee baseball. Hey, look, 50-18 last season, 20-10, a trip to Omaha. I mean, we keep saying what's next for this baseball team? What's next for this baseball team now in year 5 of Tony Vitello? So I'll ask you right now, here entering the 2022 season, a long season ahead, what would be the next step for Tennessee baseball? Or is it just maintaining, getting back to Omaha? What's the expectation here for Tony V's club?
Well, the next step would be winning a game in Omaha. That would be a big step. Really unfortunate that Tennessee goes 0-2 last year in the College World Series, but not a whole lot of people too upset with that just because Tennessee had not gone to the College World Series in so long prior to last year. I even had a former player. He is now a former player, but was on that team last year, and he echoed the disappointment of not being able to win one there in Omaha, but said that he would do it again in a heartbeat, even if it meant going there and going 0-2. He would do it again in a heartbeat, and just because of the camaraderie of that team and what they were able to accomplish, that it was just something that he'll always remember. So the next step would be winning a game in Omaha, but I think more of the focus, Cain, is just keeping it status quo and just making it the standard that, hey, we make it to the NCAA tournament every year. We make it to a super regional every year, and we are in contention to make it to Omaha each and every single season. So I think it's more about just being consistent at this point. And then obviously once you do get back to Omaha, taking that next step and winning a game, because Tony Vitello has a new contract, and with a new contract and with success in the past now, comes increased expectations.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, Tony will have to meet those expectations. But for right now, it's just kind of about just being kind of steady Eddie and just making sure you get back to the NCAA tournament and making sure that you do that year in, year out.
No baseball season, no season in general, whether you're talking about basketball, football, baseball, whatever the case may be, is going to be met without any type of adversity. And right out of the gate, a guy that Tennessee is counting on to be, one of the aces of this rotation, one of the leaders on this team, a phenomenal freshman campaign last season. Blade Tidwell going to be out really indefinitely until, they start trying to work him back in. Maybe somewhere midway through the season, we don't know. It's kind of funny. You and I were chatting with Tony Vitello a couple of days ago, and he said, hey, it's almost like getting a free agent arm, midway through the season. That's what we're kind of hoping for. A rhetorical question here, but right out of the gate, how big of a loss is Blade Tidwell, or is it more just try to focus on getting him back for SEC play?
It's huge. It's a huge loss, and that's a fair question as well. And that is the more important task, to have him ready to go by SEC play. You'd love to have him this weekend against Georgia Southern. That's a Georgia Southern baseball program that is no slouch. It'll be a tough test right out of the gate, just like it was last year for Tennessee. You would love to have him pitching against the Eagles here in a couple of weeks. So when Tennessee goes to Houston and they play preseason #1 Texas on Friday night, and then Baylor on Saturday, Oklahoma on Sunday, you would obviously love to have Blake Tidwell. He is, well, prior to the injury, we'll see how it shakes out. But prior to the injury, he was a lock to be a first-round pick, and he had the potential to be a top 5 pick, and I think at minimum he would have been a top 10 pick. So it's a huge loss. Some considered him the best arm returning in the SEC this season, a guy that touches triple digits with ease, and his secondary pitches, his off-speed pitches have really taken a step forward this offseason. So it's a huge loss. It's as simple as that. But the main task at hand is having him ready to go by conference play, because in the SEC, being available for conference games and trying to put together a nice record inside the SEC East and inside the SEC, and with the SEC being so difficult, that's the main task. So they're being super cautious, probably overcautious with him because of his draft stock. He has been throwing a little bit of late, and now it's kind of about ramping back up. And that's the thing about a pitcher, is you can't just come back and play immediately once you get over your injury, like football or basketball. A pitcher has to work back up, and that's what they're trying to do with him right now. And I do expect him to be back about the time SEC play starts.
Blake Tidwell certainly falls into this category, but Tennessee's got a nice core of really accomplished players that kind of like Tony Vitello, the expectations now are even, kind of raised even more. Guys like Jordan Beck, Drew Gilbert, Evan Russell. Kind of speak on the veteran leadership of this team and the potential there to kind of get Tennessee back and hitting as well as it did, in that lineup last season.
Yeah, this roster is constructed kind of funny when you think about it. It's a new look Tennessee baseball team, but there's also familiar faces back in more important roles this year. On the pitching staff, you lose Chad Dallas, your Friday night starter. Sean Hunley, your best pitcher out of the bullpen, and Chad Dallas and Sean Hunley, they were kind of the heart of the pitching staff last season. You also lose Will Heflin, who had been here a while and had great respect from his teammates. So those are 3 big-time veterans that have moved on. But you do bring back Redmond Walsh, who is taking advantage of the free year of eligibility and is back for a 6th season. He's kind of like the John Fulkerson of Tennessee baseball. You also get Blake Tidwell back. I know he's not available right off the jump, but he's a guy with plenty of experience. And Tennessee kind of has 3 John Fulkersons on the baseball team. I mentioned Redmond Walsh. Evan Russell, the heart and soul of this baseball team, he's back, and he's moved from left field to catcher. And then Luke Lipsius, he's back as well for his 6th year. And he's going to hit a lot of homers there at first base this year. So Jordan Beck, Drew Gilbert, those guys need to be mentioned, Cain, as you did, because they are going to be leaders on this team. They're going to be 2 really important bats in the lineup. But it starts with Luke Lipsius, Evan Russell, Redmond Walsh. Those guys understand the standard better than anybody over there, and they will be the go-to guys in terms of leadership on this team. But I expect Jordan Beck and Drew Gilbert, Trey Lipscomb, Cortland Lawson, some other guys as well to really step up and help bridge that gap from last year to this year.
All right, last thing, man, then we'll get you out of the door. And, of course, we're going to bring you on this podcast to talk baseball, all season long. What we hope will be another successful baseball season for Tony Vitello. That season starts Friday against Georgia Southern. Tennessee plays at Lindsey Nelson Stadium, I believe, the first 9 games of the season, 2 weekend series, couple midweek games, and then off to Minute Maid Park, as you mentioned, to take on some great competition there. I think that is March the 5th. Yeah, March the 4th, actually, is that Friday. We talked a lot about the names we know. Give me a player or 2 that Tennessee fans are going to know about and going to know about in a hurry.
Chase Burns and Chase Dolander, the other 2 big-time arms in the starting rotation. Blake Tidwell, he would have been the ace. He'll be the ace when he comes back. But with a healthy Blake Tidwell and Chase Dolander and Chase Burns, that's 3 potential first-round picks making up your starting rotation on the weekend, and 3 guys that can touch triple digits and just throw absolute gas Chase Burns is kind of Blake Tidwell 2.0, a mid-state guy that could have been drafted in the first round out of high school, but wanted to come be coached by Frank Anderson. And he's going to get the ball off the jump. He's expected to get the ball Friday night or Friday afternoon against Georgia Southern. And he's a guy that Tennessee fans will grow accustomed to very quickly. To me, I've been calling him Blake Tidwell 2.0 just because they're similar pitchers coming from the mid-state and going to be impact freshmen. I think he'll be in the running for SEC Freshman of the Year. And Chase Dolander is actually a transfer from Georgia Southern, who pitched well against Tennessee last year, add some intrigue to this weekend, but a guy that the staff views as a potential first-round pick in the next couple of years. He's a sophomore, so he'll be back next year. But after next year, he should be off to the MLB in the draft. And another hard-throwing guy who's just real filthy. And there's been a lot of positive feedback from both Chases as they've stepped foot on campus back in the fall. And Chase Burns, Chase Dolander, going to be two dominant pitchers for the Vols this year if they can stay healthy.
Well, can't wait for it. Another Tennessee baseball season is here, and now fans, a lot of intrigue. Obviously, the block party was awesome with the super regional play last year. The walk-off grand slam and regional play against Wright States, the trip to Omaha, a whole lot of firsts, the first time since. Maybe Tennessee will make some new memories this year, but as Ben said, looking forward to these raised expectations and more stands, more fans on a consistent basis over at Lindsey Nelson Stadium. I'm going to be over there covering this team a little bit this year, as long as you will let me. Ben, you cover pretty much every single team over at Tennessee, obviously over at Volquest with myself. What do you got coming up? What can we look forward to on a weekly basis in terms of your content for the Tennessee baseball team?
Yeah, it's a hectic time right now. Tennessee basketball, big win over Kentucky. Tuesday night looks to be a real contender. Proving that in the win over Kentucky. So makes March much more intriguing after we thought there were going to be a early first weekend exit in the tournament. But it's that crossover between basketball and baseball season. So going to be a busy couple of weeks. Auburn coming to town next Saturday, senior day against Arkansas coming up, and then the SEC tournament, NCAA tournament, all while some big non-conference games for baseball with Georgia Southern this upcoming weekend. And we talked about the series in Houston that first weekend of March. So just plenty of coverage of both the basketball team as they try to make a run in March, and year 5 of Tony Vitello kicking off this Friday.
Yep, and Ben will have it all at volquest.com. Give him a follow over at Ben McKee 14 on the Twitter. Ben, thanks so much, dude.
Thanks, Eric.
All right, again, that is Ben McKee. When I say he covers pretty much everything, we're talking football, basketball, baseball, recruiting. I do some recruiting over there at Volquest, and a little silent a lot of times outside of football season, but Ben is not. So if you follow his work, I'm sure you guys know who he is. He does an awesome job. All right, we'll come back. We'll tie a bow on this episode of Locked On Vols here in just a second. We got a final segment left here on a Thursday show. I'm Eric Cain. Welcome back into Locked On Vols. And again, as always, thanks so much for making Locked On Vols your first listen. Great stuff there from Ben McKee. I'm telling you, if you want to know everything about Tennessee baseball as it tries to make its return, a trek to Omaha, year 5 for Tony Vitello, need to follow Ben, need to read his work and all that. It's on Twitter at Ben McKee 14 and, of course, at volquest.com. I'm going to be over there and helping him out a little bit this weekend as well. Love baseball, and certainly exciting times here in Knoxville with Tennessee baseball under the Tony Vitello regime. All right, let's get back to, on that note, mind you, voice of the Tennessee baseball team, John Wilkerson, will join us on tomorrow's show to preview his season and the booth coming up with Tennessee baseball. That's what you have to look forward to, along with an Arkansas preview coming up on tomorrow's Locked On Vols. One other note, too, former Tennessee head coach Derek Dooley joining Nick Saban's staff in Alabama. That's according to a Football Scoop report from John Bryce. Likely going to be an analyst. We'll have to see exactly what his role will be, but it looks like Derek Dooley, who spent 3 seasons here at Tennessee, is going to be joining Nick Saban's staff in Tuscaloosa after, a stint with the Cowboys and a stint, with the New York Giants as well. And, of course, was an offensive coordinator at Missouri, too, during his time in the SEC outside of being at Tennessee. It's going to be an offensive analyst for Nick Saban. So that's a report from Trey Wallace, John Bryce from Football Scoop. I found that interesting there. Okay. I put a graphic out there. Actually, Lance Daw, our Locked On Kentucky host that does graphics for me, he made a graphic, posted it on Twitter and on my Facebook page at Cainer on Air on Facebook and at Locked On Vols. And this is going back to the Kentucky game from Tuesday night. The simple question was, who was the MVP against Kentucky? I gave you 4 options. Santiago Vescovi, 18 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists. Kennedy Chandler, 17 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists. Zakai Zeigler, 14 points, 4 assists, 4 steals. John Fulkerson, 14 points, 8 rebounds, 1 steal, and 1 block. I left off Jonas Adu. Of course, he didn't have that many points. He had finished with 5 points, but he had 8 rebounds, or 7 rebounds, 3 of which came on the offensive end. I left Jonas Adu out there, but obviously he deserves some consideration as well. But I really don't think that, I mean, it's a fun conversation to have because a lot of people are chiming in. I don't think there's a wrong answer here. I mean, of course, you can go with the guy that scored the most points. That was Santiago Vescovi, but I think he left about 6 or 7 points off the court or off the board more than what he could have. But again, 18 points. He had 20 points against Kentucky that first go around. Kennedy Chandler is the reason Tennessee took control of the game in the first half. 8 straight points, back-to-back threes. He had 15 in the first half, finished with 17. Great in the assists as well with 6 assists and 5 rebounds. That would probably be my pick if I'm voting, would be Kennedy Chandler. Zakai Zeigler got his points a lot towards the end of the game in the second half, but impacted the game so much defensively. Started that little brouhaha moment with the strength coach, and Tennessee followed that with a 15 to 1 or 17 to 1 run, which was huge. But 14 points, 4 assists, and 4 steals. And then John Fulkerson, who is continuing to give you a lot right now, 14 points, 8 rebounds, a steal, and a block. Want to read some of the comments from this tweet. Always the Volin chimes in. Zakiya was the fire starter. The team feeds off his energy and grit. Vescovi and Kennedy Chandler are constants, and Fulkerson is the culture. Each of these guys contributes immensely. Hard to pick one, but momentum changes when Zeigler is on the court. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I've been kind of calling the spark plug all season long. No doubt about it. He brings so much, both offensively and defensively, to this team when he steps on the court. Vol Mom says, I would say all. If I had to choose one, it would be Vescovi. Can't argue that much. Mike Moore says the game changes when Zakai Zeigler takes over. Every freaking time. He's a superhero. Jamie says they played like a team of MVPs, and that's what we've been missing. And it's funny, too, because I made the graphic after the game on Tuesday night, that I post on socials, sometimes on YouTube. You guys have seen them, just the new episode and all that. And one of the captions I put was team win. It was an absolute team win. I mean, we're having a conversation about who should be the team or the game MVP, and there's really 5 players in consideration. I mean, that's a team win in my book, and so I couldn't agree more there. We'll go on to Al the Baddest, and of course, his profile picture is of Al Wilson. Let me make sure. Yep, that is Al Wilson. He says, Vescovi scored way more than I expected. He missed at least 3 layups, hit a ton of big shots as well. Kind of like what I was saying earlier. I think he left maybe about 6 to 7 points off the board, but still led the team in scoring. Slammin replied to that comment and said, and missed 2 free throws there in the last 2 minutes of game action. You had our friends over Locked On Auburn that quote tweeted it and said, not Justin Powell. Well, I kindly responded, well, didn't even need Justin Powell to beat Kentucky because it was such an easy dub, right? I think Justin Powell might be one of the more disappointing things about this team this year. And it's not like he's played horrible. It's just you thought that maybe he'd have a bigger role. And in that role, you thought he maybe have had a bigger impact by now. But when you have guys like Zakai Zeigler stepping up and taking over that role, it's hard to argue. But Justin Powell's still a guy that can come off the bench and knock down a shot. And, he's already transferred once. I don't think he's going anywhere. And so, Tennessee's going to benefit from having Justin Powell on the court from here on out. I put it on Facebook, and I got a couple people chime in on Facebook as well. Again, that's at Cainer on Air. Mark says, Kennedy Chandler working hard for himself and his team with those stats. Cody says, Fulkerson rebounds win games. That is some grade A basketball analysis there from one Cody Kidd. So I appreciate Mark and Cody for chiming in on the Facebook. So again, what say you? Who do you think was the team MVP from Tuesday night? There is no wrong answer. Santiago Vescovi, Kennedy Chandler, Zakai Zeigler, John Fulkerson. You can even put in Jonas Adu if you so want to, because I think he should be in this conversation with 5.7 rebounds, 3 on the offensive end, and 3 blocks as well. My vote would be Kennedy Chandler because he's the one that got Tennessee the ball game in that first half. A big reason his scoring, what was going on, 8 straight points, while Kentucky went over 10 minutes without making a field goal. So Tennessee's usually the one that's on the long scoring droughts. It's not used to having it on the other foot, right? But it's always fun. Just any way you want to spin it as we kind of close the book here on Kentucky. We'll talk about it in terms of resumes and all that. And, Jerry Palm joined the starting lineup on 99.1 The Sports Animal Wednesday morning and said when his next bracket comes out, Tennessee will be no lower than a 4 seed, meaning it'll be 4 seed or better. He'll likely move up to a 3 line, right? That's what happens when you knock down a team that by most bracketologists was a 1-line team, right? That being Kentucky, probably that 4th peg on that first line, but nonetheless, Tennessee knocked him off. And so we'll talk about this win. Tennessee remains undefeated at home. Rick Barnes now 9-7 over Kentucky. Tennessee's won at least 1 game in each of the past 7 seasons against Kentucky. All these I've already mentioned on the show. But just a monumental win for Tennessee, and it happened in a big way. Now, again, we'll talk about it tomorrow. You're at Arkansas on Saturday. Going to be a massive game. You stay on the road, go to Como on Tuesday nights or on Wednesday nights, and a difficult place to play because you don't know what you're going to get from Conzo Martin's team, not in, not out. Come back. You play a couple games, then you have Auburn, and then Georgia. So it's going to, and then Arkansas to end the season. You're through 1/5 of this leg to finish the regular season, but man, it was a great, great first step for Tennessee basketball in this stretch. All right, that'll do it here for a Thursday show. Big thanks to you guys for tuning in, talking a little Tennessee hoops. Big thanks to Ben McKee for stopping by, previewing the baseball season. Again, reminder, voice of the Tennessee baseball team, John Wilkerson, will stop by the show. That happens tomorrow on Locked On Vols, and we'll get you set with a complete Arkansas preview heading into the weekend. Guys, thanks so much for making Locked On Vols your first listen. I say it every day. I'll continue to say it. Please, if you are listening and you haven't subscribed on YouTube, go ahead and check it out. I mean, even if you're not a YouTube guy, do me a solid, right? Go ahead and make you a little account. Doesn't take 2 minutes. All my family members, my fiance, all made their little accounts. Just subscribe, Locked On Vols, close the app, never worry about it again, right? Just do that. I got a wedding to pay for, and so I'm trying to get into that ad revenue, if you know what I'm saying. Support the show on YouTube. Can't thank you enough for doing that, and be sure to check out Chris Gordy of Locked On SEC. Make that your second listen each and every day after Locked On Vols being your first listen. Been fun. Been a fun week here on the show. We'll finish off strong tomorrow. Until then, you guys enjoy the rest of your Thursday, everybody.